What's up everybody, welcome back to the channel and to my naughty list of 2021. So generally speaking, one wants these lists to be as small as possible with as few candidates for this list, but unfortunately there were quite a few disappointments during this year. However, I've decided to just put together a list of my 3 most disappointing games, and let's see if you guys could guess which ones these are going to be, if you agree with me. But more specifically, let's go. So the first game on my list is Grand Theft Auto Trilogy, the definitive edition. And I will say this, that about a week or 2 ago, I know there's a patch that came out that addressed a lot of the visual bugs and issues that were present on this game at launch. But that still doesn't mean that the game wasn't a massive disappointment to me when it launched, and when it launched in such a rough state. Doesn't matter which platform you were on. Generally speaking, I've come to just expect Rockstar to launch Grand Theft Autos in not a perfect state on PC, and that's something that I've come to, be okay with in a weird, fucked up way. But it definitely is strange that literally the console market, where that's their bread and butter for these kinds of games, it launched even poorer than what it was available on PC. So what I've actually enjoyed a lot more than the actual game itself, of which I only played about 4 to 5 hours, which was more than enough for me to see, whoa, this thing is super rough and it's just launched in a terrible state, and to essentially eradicate it off my PC, is I've actually enjoyed the bugs and all of these videos that content creators on YouTube have made to show their experience in the game, some of which you're seeing in the background now as I'm talking about it. But just in general, if something has really taught me a lesson this year, is that just because studios are pedigree studios and because they've made great games and great quality games in the past, doesn't mean that you can always expect that from them. And certainly this was a great representation of that rule for sure. Now, it's not to say that things can't be improved for this game and that it can't get to a good or an even great state, and certainly the most recent patch has shown that this is something that Rockstar wants to go for. But while I'm not really angry or anything like that at any of the studios or these games, I mean, I would say more I'm disappointed. It's simply the fact that it just boggles my mind that this still happens in today's world. And most recently with the PC release of Final Fantasy VII Remaster, which almost made this list as well. Again, it just seems that we're stuck in this kind of loop where studios keep rushing these products out of the door, unfinished, unpatched, unoptimized, and missing certain features which surely should be included, only for people to freak out about it, remind them about it, put them on blast, and then the studio go, okay, you know what, let me put that in. And I always wonder what mindset we're dealing with here, where perhaps some of these studios, and I shudder to believe that this is even true, but some of these studios go, well, let's release it like this, and if we don't get too much shit about it, then you know what, fuck it, we got the money and we can run. Then that brings us to item 2 on the list, or number 2 rather, and that's Biomutant. Now, the funny thing about disappointment is that it's not something that we can always lump with the studios that make these games or with the game itself. Sometimes this disappointment can be your own fault as well, and this is where Biomutant comes in for me. I am as much to blame for the fact that Biomutant was a disappointment to me as the game itself is. And that's where it kind of gets funny like that, because for me, Biomutant came out at a time when I was desperately frustrated with Outriders, which is a game that we play a lot on this channel and which I've invested a lot of time into, but it was in a rough state. There was the bug where you basically had no survivability and drop rates were bad and yada yada yada. The story isn't about Outriders. But the point was, and this was true for not just me, but many people in my community and people who I interacted with, who looked at Biomutant as something that could essentially take away this disappointment that they had with Outriders and could become the next thing that they could focus, all of their gaming attention on. Unfortunately, that ended up not being the case, at least not for the majority of the people. I've certainly heard from other players and people that have thoroughly enjoyed the game. But for me, it wasn't so much a case of the game not being good or the game, being good, but it was just a game and it wasn't anything special, and it kind of was a little bit boring and it was a little bit glitchy and the combat didn't feel just quite right, and it just didn't live up to this massive hype in my own mind that I had made for this, and that's the part that's my fault. The game certainly didn't put all these thoughts into my head. I looked at what was being shown by the game, which it delivered, by the way, and I simply built it up to, stratospheric levels, and that's on me. So unfortunately, Biomutant for me was a bit of a disappointment, and something which I thought I was going to be able to put lots and lots and lots of hours into, not only as a creator, but also as someone that enjoys games of that kind. And after about, I'd have to go back and look, but definitely not more than 8 hours with the game, I just realized that it wasn't any fun for me. And I understand that if there are people that feel that, you know what, dude, it gets really fun after like 15 hours, or it gets really fun after 20 hours, but that just doesn't seem right, that you need to spend 15 to 20 hours for something to actually start clicking and start being fun for you. I mean, that's a hell of a time investment, and not something that a lot of people can do. And so definitely that doesn't count in any game's favor if that's the case. And number 3, and this one, oh golly, is probably the one that I'm going to spend the most time talking about, is of course Battlefield 2042. Now, on the channel itself, when I stream and the content that I bring to the channel, I don't include a lot of games like Warzone and Call of Duty and Battlefield and Valorant and, shooters that you can either play with other teammates or, that are of a big multiplayer variety, or battle royales. Although those games are the ones which I offline enjoy a lot with my friends. Those are the ones that I spend entire Friday nights playing when I'm off stream, or basically any other time that I have some free time. And over the last year, a general frustration has been growing within me for Warzone, but not just me, but also the people that I play with regularly, to the point where we started really looking out and trying to find other things to play. And of course, Apex Legends was in there for a while, but in the background, in the peripheral, was always the fact that this year we were getting a Battlefield game. Now, in the past, my favorite Battlefield is Bad Company 2, so just to give you an idea of where I think this series, peaked. This certainly had a lot of us hyped up. And again, having just spoken about hype and what it can do for you, what I did is I kept myself in check the whole time with Battlefield, because everything that I was seeing, the footage I was seeing and everything like that, just didn't seem right. Now, of course, the beta rolls in and I play the beta, and now the real worry settles in, and people that I speak to about the game also go like, dude, it's fucking Battlefield, it's DICE, they don't fuck around, these guys know what they're doing, it's, this is the game, this is the one that's gonna get us away from Warzone, this is the one that's gonna make us uninstall Apex. And that's just a lot of, first of all, that's a lot of, weight to put on a game to expect it to do that. But then when you actually get the product itself, and it is exactly the way how Battlefield 2042 now is and continues to be, it really is such a massive disappointment. And you realize that a studio that you depended on for this insane quality in the past, DICE, right, have terribly failed at delivering something a kind of game which they've been delivering for years upon years upon years, and they should be subject matter experts on. I mean, it's impossible to make a list of all the shit that's wrong with this game, but I mean, it's broken across the board, right? So I mean, functionally as a game, it doesn't work. It doesn't have a server browser. Hit detection is fucked up. The game mechanics are broken in some cases. Equipment doesn't work. The list goes on and on. But then also, just from a design perspective, as in how the game works and how it all comes together as a package, there's also so much wrong with it. The kind of step backwards that they took in terms of destructibility and all of that was present in the previous games, but also the class system and this weird thing where you don't really know who this game is for. Is it for the people that like big battles, 128 players on one map with vehicles and all that stuff, or is this for the crowd that they're trying to steal from people that play battle royales and they're trying to do them with Hazard Zone? But the bottom line is that the game is fundamentally so fucking broken that this is the one that I don't think comes right with patches. I keep talking with my friends, and the general sentiment is 6 months from now, Battlefield's going to be in a great state. 8 months from now, after a whole bunch of patches and maybe 1 or 2 of the DLC items from, the season fucking pass, then the game's gonna be in like a really healthy place and you'll be able to play it. I don't agree with that, first of all, and even if it is, that's too fucking late. I think fundamentally when you look at Battlefield, what's actually broken with it are, you know, the mechanics within the game and the game itself. So you can spend several patches now, you know, ironing out issues like the hit detection and changing it so that people can't just drop vehicles in the entire time and fucking nerfing hovercrafts or whatever. But you're still gonna have this class system as an example, which doesn't change with patches. And it would be really weird for them to build this entire system up with the classes and then 6 months later dismantle it and, you know, bring in like, you know, specialists or whatever that you can build yourself, and, you know, like a classless system, for example. So Battlefield 2042 is probably, I mean, I didn't really do this list in any from worst to best or anything like that, but it is probably the biggest disappointment for me. But because it just launched in such a terrible state, but it also came from a studio who you just depend on for quality. And so that's probably the one which hurt the most this year. But let me know in the comments down below which games for you were the worst. I know that some people are still out there playing Battlefield 2042, and I fucking commend you. I think some people are still playing some of these other games on my list as well. And if you're finding fun in those games, then please continue to do so, because that's of course the most important thing. But for me, these three just really struck hard. And yeah, that's about it. But thank you so much for watching the video, especially if you made it this far. It's just super important to me that you have a fantastic morning, a great afternoon, and a super awesome evening wherever you are in the world. And until next video, fucking cheers.
They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now, best of me now, best of me now, best of me. They want the best of me now.